The air hung heavy with the stench of sweat and cheap beer. The night was alive with the sounds of revelry and despair, a cacophony that echoed through the narrow alleyways and dimly lit bars. It was a world where dreams were often crushed under the weight of reality, and hope was a rare commodity. Music blared from a boombox, a defiant beat against the grim backdrop of the crumbling projects. The rhythm was a lifeline for many, a temporary escape from the harshness of their surroundings. The graffiti on the walls told stories of struggle and resistance, a silent testament to the lives lived in the shadows. Addy, barely a man at 16, stalked through the throng of bodies, his eyes cold and calculating. He moved with a purpose, each step a declaration of his dominance. The streets were his domain, and he navigated them with the confidence of a seasoned predator. He was a predator on the hunt, his territory, his rules. The darkness was his ally, concealing his movements and amplifying his presence. Every corner, every shadow was familiar to him, a part of the intricate web he had woven over the years. Life had taught Addy that trust was a weakness, loyalty a burden. He had learned these lessons the hard way, through betrayal and loss. In his world, alliances were fleeting and promises were often broken. He relied on no one but himself, a lone wolf in a concrete jungle. He'd seen more death and despair before his 10th birthday than most did in a lifetime. The memories of those early years were etched into his mind, a constant reminder of the fragility of life. He had witnessed the brutality of the streets firsthand, and it had shaped him into the person he was today. The streets were his classroom, violence his curriculum. Every fight, every confrontation was a lesson in survival. He had become adept at reading people, anticipating their moves, and striking when they least expected it. It was a skill that had kept him alive and in control. The only law he recognized was the law of the jungle. In this unforgiving environment, only the strong survived. He had no illusions about the nature of his existence. It was a constant battle, a relentless struggle for dominance, survival of the fittest. It was a mantra that guided his every action. He had honed his body and mind to perfection, always ready for the next challenge. His determination was unyielding, his resolve unbreakable. He had a crew, a pack of lost boys hardened by the unforgiving streets. They were his family, bound together by shared experiences and mutual dependence. Each member had their own story of hardship and resilience, and together they formed a formidable unit. They moved like shadows, their loyalty bought and paid for with a mixture of fear and respect. They operated with a precision that came from years of working together, each one knowing their role and executing it flawlessly. Their presence was a warning to others. Cross them at your peril. Addy was their leader, their king. His word was law. He commanded their respect through his actions, leading by example and never showing weakness. His authority was absolute, and he wielded it with an iron fist. Addy's hand tightened around the cold steel in his pocket. Tonight, they were collecting. The weight of the weapon was a familiar comfort, a reminder of the power he held. He had no qualms about using it if necessary. A shopkeeper had dared to refuse their protection. A fatal mistake. In this world, defiance was met with swift and brutal retribution. The shopkeeper's refusal was a challenge to Addy's authority, one that could not go unanswered. Addy's lips curled into a cruel smile. He relished the opportunity to assert his dominance, to remind everyone of the consequences of crossing him. It was a game he played with ruthless efficiency. He'd teach the old man a lesson he wouldn't soon forget. The fear in the shopkeeper's eyes was a familiar sight, one that Addy had seen countless times before. It was a look that spoke of desperation and helplessness, a look that Addy thrived on. Fear was a powerful weapon. Addy thrived on it. It was the currency of the streets, the language everyone understood. In a world where trust was scarce and loyalty was fleeting, fear was a constant, a reliable tool for maintaining control. It was the currency of the streets, the language everyone understood. It transcended words, cutting through the bravado and posturing to reveal the true nature of those who inhabited this world. Fear was a universal truth, an unspoken agreement that governed their interactions. And tonight, he was fluent. He moved with a confidence born of experience, his every action calculated and deliberate. The night was his stage, and he was the undisputed star. In this world of shadows and secrets, Addy was a master, and the streets were his kingdom. The smoky haze of the club stung Addy's eyes, but he didn't blink. The air was thick with the scent of sweat and anticipation. the kind of atmosphere that could only be found in the heart of the city's underground music scene. Addy had been here countless times before, but tonight felt different. There was a buzz in the air, an electric charge that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. He watched mesmerized as Godzilla, the city's hottest rapper, commanded the stage. The crowd moved as one, a sea of bodies swaying to the rhythm of the beat. Godzilla's presence was magnetic, drawing everyone in with his raw energy and undeniable talent. Addy couldn't take his eyes off him, feeling a mix of admiration and envy. Godzilla, with his diamond chains and effortless swagger, was everything Addy wanted to be: powerful, revered, untouchable. He moved with a confidence that seemed almost otherworldly, each gesture and word perfectly calculated to captivate his audience. Addy could see the respect in the eyes of the crowd, the way they hung on every word, every note. Their meeting was pure chance, a twist of fate orchestrated by a mutual friend. Addy had been introduced to Godzilla in the dimly lit back room of the club, a place where deals were made and dreams were born. The moment their eyes met, Addy felt a spark of recognition, as if their paths had been destined to cross. Godzilla saw something in Addy, a raw talent hidden beneath the layers of anger and aggression. He saw potential, a diamond in the rough that just needed the right guidance to shine. Godzilla had been where Addy was, struggling to find his voice in a world that seemed determined to silence him. He became Addy's mentor, guiding him, pushing him to channel his rage into music. Godzilla taught him how to harness his emotions, to turn his pain into power. He showed Addy that music could be a weapon, a way to fight back against the world that had tried to break him. Addy's lyrics were raw, visceral, echoing with the pain and frustration of his life on the streets. Each word was a testament to his struggle, a cry for recognition and respect. He poured his soul into his music, using it as an outlet for all the anger and hurt he had bottled up inside. His music resonated with people, its honesty cutting through the polished veneer of mainstream hip-hop. Fans connected with his story, seeing their own struggles reflected in his lyrics. Addy's music was a voice for the voiceless, a beacon of hope for those who felt lost and forgotten. His star began to rise. With each performance, his following grew, and the buzz around his name became impossible to ignore. Addy was no longer just another face in the crowd. He was becoming a force to be reckoned with in the music industry. He tasted success, the intoxicating allure of money, fame, and power. The life he had always dreamed of was finally within his grasp. But with success came new challenges, new temptations that threatened to pull him off course. It was a seductive mistress, whispering promises of a life beyond the concrete jungle. The allure of luxury and excess was hard to resist, and Addy found himself drawn deeper into the world of fame and fortune. Addy, hungry for a way out, embraced it with open arms. He knew that the road ahead would be filled with obstacles, but with Godzilla's guidance and his own unyielding determination, he was ready to face whatever came his way. The journey was just beginning, and Addy was prepared to fight for his place in the spotlight. Addy's life became a whirlwind of sold-out concerts, platinum records, and screaming fans. His face, once a fixture on wanted posters, now graced magazine covers. He had everything he ever dreamed of, but the street still held his heart captive. He formed a new crew, this time bound by loyalty and shared ambition. They called themselves the Dragons, a nod to Addy's mentor. But beneath the surface of success, a darkness festered. Addy's past was a shadow he couldn't outrun. He funneled his wealth into illegal activities, using his music as a front for gun running and drug trafficking. He justified his actions as a way to empower his people, to give them the opportunities he never had. But the truth was far more insidious. Power had corrupted him, twisting his desire for good into something twisted and self-serving. The streets he'd sworn to escape had become his empire, and he, their ruthless king. Section 4. Whispers of Betrayal. The air in the room crackled with tension. Addy, his face obscured by shadows, tapped a menacing rhythm on the mahogany desk. His lieutenants, a motley crew of hardened criminals, avoided his gaze. Something was wrong. Rumors had reached Addy's ears, whispers of dissent within the ranks. A weapon shipment, destined for a radical group across the border, had gone missing. He'd built his empire on loyalty and fear. This betrayal cut deep. His gaze, sharp as a razor, swept over the faces of his men. Tail, his most trusted soldier, stood silently by his side. Tail, with his unwavering loyalty and quiet strength, was Addy's right-hand man. He would find the traitor. Addy rose from his chair, his towering presence filling the room. "Find the weapon," he commanded, his voice low and dangerous. "Find the one who betrayed me. The punishment for such treachery would be swift and brutal." The Section 5, the missing weapon. The air was thick with tension, the kind that clung to your skin and made every breath feel heavy. The city was a labyrinth of secrets, and somewhere within its darkened alleys, a crucial piece of Addy's empire had gone missing. The hunt for the missing weapons consumed Addy. Every document, every file, every scrap of information was scrutinized under his intense gaze. He knew that somewhere, hidden in the chaos, was the key to finding what he had lost. He interrogated his men, his suspicion growing with each passing hour. Each answer he received only seemed to deepen the mystery, and his frustration grew. The dragons were supposed to be loyal, but now doubt gnawed at the edges of his mind. The dragons were a tight-knit unit, bound by blood and loyalty, or so he thought. The bonds that once seemed unbreakable now felt fragile, like they could shatter at any moment. The unity that had been their strength was now their greatest vulnerability. Tail, ever the loyal soldier, worked tirelessly by Addy's side. His dedication was unwavering, his resolve unbreakable. Night after night, he pushed himself to the limit, driven by a fierce loyalty to his leader. He scoured the city, following leads, shaking down informants. Every corner of the urban sprawl was searched. Every whisper followed. The city was a maze, but Tail navigated it with a relentless determination. But even Tail's efforts yielded nothing. The frustration was palpable, a heavy weight that seemed to press down on both men. The city, once a familiar territory, now felt like an enemy, hiding its secrets in the shadows. The weapon, a powerful symbol of Addy's growing influence, had vanished without a trace. It was more than just a tool. It was a representation of his power, his control. Its absence was a glaring void, a reminder of what he stood to lose. The weight of suspicion pressed down on Addy. Every glance, every whisper, every shadow seemed to hold a threat. Paranoia crept in, making him question everything and everyone around him. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was surrounded by snakes, their venomous whispers poisoning his mind. The sense of betrayal was like a constant ache, a reminder that trust was a luxury he could no longer afford. He trusted Tail, but doubt, like an insidious weed, began to take root in his heart. The loyalty that had once been a source of strength now felt like a potential weakness. Could he really trust anyone? The missing weapons were more than just a threat to Addy's empire. They were a symbol of his waning control. Every day they remained missing was a day his power slipped further from his grasp. They were a symbol of his waning control. The cracks in his empire were starting to show, and he knew that if he didn't find the weapons soon, those cracks would become chasms. He had to find them, had to reassert his dominance before the whispers of dissent turned into a full-blown rebellion. The stakes were higher than ever, and failure was not an option. Addy steeled himself for the battle ahead, knowing that the future of his empire hung in the balance.